Hey Spirit Island fans, my name is Matt. I'm going to be playing Finder of Paths Unseen against Sweden 6. Aren't a lot of good Finder games posted online, and I want to work on changing that. Finder is probably my absolute favorite spirit. It is really unique if you haven't played it before. Its presence tracks look like this, which looks a little bit complicated. We're going to talk through a bit on how to play it well, especially in true solo, where it plays a little bit different. In solo, you're going to want to be going top track, where you gain a ton of energy, store it up, and you're also going to be wanting to gain a giant major. And sort of our game plan is going to be to put everything in one land and then kill it in one or two moves, because Finder, every time it destroys an invader or Dahan, it has to pay responsibilities to the dead. It is a psychopomp, it's the Grim Reaper for the Dahan, so it has to destroy its presence and lose one energy. So we want to be destroying a ton of things in one swift move to end the game. So we're going to be looking for things that can do damage per invader or destroy everything in a given land. With that, let's get into it. Okay. Wetland start is probably not good for us. Um, so turn one for Finder, our game plan is going to be to use Paths Tied by Nature and a Circuitous and Wending Journey in order to combine basically these two, all of those invaders, into one land and then push them all off into one dump land. And so we're going to use this jungle most likely as our dump land where we're going to store everything. And our goal is going to be eventually to isolate it pretty much every turn of the game so that stuff can't actually end up leaving. So with that, let's gather, place down our presence. Um, let's see. So we can go here. And so we're going to be able to hit turn like one or the second level of lay paths that cannot help by walk, which lets us push one thing. So we need to consider where we want to use that. But we're going to be using path tides to move these two over here. And then circuitous and wending journey will push half of all invaders out of this into here as long as we have a presence. So I do think this will work. So lay paths can push one invader, and we're going to push this town into here. And we don't care about the adjacencies. That's fine. Great. And so we're going to use Paths Tide to push the town and then my presence. And we have to move the presence so that we can use Circuitous. And we're going to push those two. I don't actually think that we need the Dahan to move. So we're going to finish, or actually, I like the, no, I think we're good with those there. And we're going to push this into here as well. Okay. So we're probably going to play Aid from Spirit Speakers in order to push this stuff into there. And I think that means that we can start fishing for a major. So there's a surprising number of majors that are useful for Finder. And these mostly are not. Vigor is a very good major, it can do a lot of damage, but it isn't kind of like instantly game winning in one move. It's the sort of thing where you can do it 2 or 3 turns in a row in order to end the game. But for each of those turns, Finder would have to pay responsibilities for the dead and it would lose its presence. Fire and Flood, a little bit too expensive, and it just doesn't do enough damage. Obviously, 8 damage, decent, but we're looking to clear out this whole thing in one big move. Cast down into the briny deep can be used for sacrifice victories. So we're going to get a ton of energy, so we will be able to afford this. And then also we're probably going to be able to hit the thresholds as well, because we've got an energy or an any space, a water space, and an earth space, a moon space, and a sun space on the track, right? So that's going to be able to cover basically everything. You add Ways of Shore and Heartland, and potentially one other card like Traveler's Boon, and you're going to be able to threshold this. So that's somewhat appealing. I ultimately think we're probably going to end up not using any of these, but we're going to take Cast Down because it's the only one of these that like could be useful. And we're going to toss Path's Tide. Um, great. And so where do we want to add our presence? I do think that adding presence here can be helpful. And let's see. We are going to, well, okay. Offer passage between worlds is kind of interesting instead of aid, because it lets us, but that will blight. So we're going to use offer passage next time to ignore that land. But I think this is good for now. We're not hitting any of our nates, which is somewhat unfortunate, but we're not going to blight, and we're going to work on just building up this dump land. Okay. Ooh, Path's Tide. Not actually usable in this case because this doesn't have any Dahan. Um, so I don't mind plopping this here, and then okay, great. During the next Noble Ravage, every town does +1 damage. Doesn't particularly matter. We're gonna skip the rest of the phase. Each beast destroys one. Nice. Add one to a jungle or wetland with Dahan. I guess here is probably better. Okay. Somewhat inconvenient. That said, we're not really going to be doing too much Dahan counterattack. That's not really our playstyle. And at the end of the day, our goal is to get everything in one land and kill them all. So it's not super important that we avoid those escalations. I mean, it's not good, but it's not bad either. And so we can do one of two things right now. We can fish for another major, or we can add a presence and gain a card play. So we've been playing on one card play this whole game, and we will for quite a while when you go top track. And you're able to do that because you can do this +1 card play basically every other turn. So we're going to go turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, and then on turn 4 we're going to do one of these two options, and turn 5 we'll go down to the extra card play. Then we're going to reclaim, and then with up the second card play, and from there we'll either gain one of these two depending on what's most useful. Most likely here if we end up going towards cast down, and most likely here otherwise. So right now we can offer passage to just kill this town at the cost of 2 blight, or kill the city at the cost of 2 blight. That's not bad. I don't hate it. Um, and the other option would be uh, using. I mean, I think that's if we're going to do anything about this, that's kind of what we're doing. The other option would be using the innate to push stuff into here, because the first level of the innate gives you push half of invaders round down, and the second level of the innate gives you push an additional invader. So you could use that, for instance, here to push half, and then an additional one, and pop them into there to keep this fully clear. And if we can hit the second level of the innate, if we grab these two, which I do kind of like, so that would give us +4 energy. We're only spending 1, and then we would be able to do half +1. And we can also move our Dahan to be like a little bit better positioned if we want. Uh, Ultimately, it's not, the Dahan positioning isn't too important if we're not going to use this for the counterattacks. And we currently don't have any defense. We're probably not going to draw too many of them. Dahan counterattacks and defending can be a good finder strategy. I don't want to downplay that, but in true solo, you really do need the sort of like giant major that cleans out the game efficiently. So that is, I think, what we're going to be looking to draw. So let's go 2 card plays. We're going to put a presence, I think, here, because we do need to eventually start pushing stuff out of that. And we've got these two. And so this, I guess we can put a bunch of presents here. Traveler's Boon, we can also use that to pull this town out, which I quite like. Great, I think we're in a good place. So, lay paths, push the city. I'm not sure if we want to push the Dahan. We're going to push the town. offer passage. Okay, so this is going to be Explorer, Explorer, Town, which means that it'll hit for 5 damage. So if we put 3 Dahan in there, it will kill the town at the very least, which is kind of nice, even if it will blight only once. I do like that. So we're going to uh, use this here. We're going to move them, uh, and we're going to move all 3 Dahan in. So we might draw into a solution for this, which would be great, but if not, we can at least let it counterattack. Now we're going to Traveler's Boon, use it on ourselves, and we're going to move this presence. I think we're only moving that presence. And we're going to move the town. Sorry. Okay. Click a land to move to here. Click the presence we want to move. That's it. And we just want to move this invader with it. Okay. And now we're going to isolate this, which will stop a bad event effect. Ignore strife. We don't care about that. Destroy. Oh, that defend actually would have been quite nice, but oh well. Okay. Now we've run into one of the problems that you do pretty much always hit, which is that this is going to come up at some point for the Ravage. We picked Jungle because it was the Sweden 4 royal backing, where you get 1 card in advance that you know is not going to be in stage 1, but eventually you do at stage 2, so it comes up. So if you're playing Sweden as Finder, the inland land that was royal backinged is usually going to be the best place to use as your dump land, because it's not going to come up. Okay, so we are now going to be hitting probably one of these two. So this gives +1 energy and +1 range on everything. And this gives move a presence and an air. Now, moving a presence 1 is functionally +1 range on one thing for the most part. They're not exactly identical, but in most cases, if you can move presence, you can use that to hit range on one ability, though it's not +1 range on everything. I think moving presence is probably a little bit higher. It also comes with a nice element, which is useful. One of the downsides to the +1 range is that oftentimes on Solo Finder, you're going to end up reclaiming looping at some point. You're going to get up to 4 or 5 energy, +3 card plays, and you're just going to stay there for the rest of the game. And at that point, you can ignore range every time you reclaim turn, so +1 range isn't as useful. On the other hand, if you do have an expensive major, the +1 energy option is kind of nice. If we were going the cast down strategy, which I think we probably are, you're sort of in a place where you're going to get that, you don't really need, the extra energy isn't as important because you're only paying 9 once. It's not like you have to repeat a 6 energy major 2 or 3 times. So, yeah. We're now in a place where this is going to blight for 2, and this is going to blight for 2. And sort of next turn, we're in a rough place. So next turn, we are probably going to be able to hit our left innate such that we can send stuff over this way from here. So that will at least stop this from blighting. But there's a good chance that we will go Blighted Island. So let's think about what we can do. Ways of Shore and Heartland is not super useful this turn, and unfortunately it doesn't let us hit any of our innates. So I don't love that. But also we do need to get to the +1 card play before we can move forward in the game. So I think it might make sense to grab a major power. These are interesting. So Weave Together the Fabric of Place has some really strong effects that we can do. So what I'm thinking is we pull these 2 lands together, and then it builds into this because it's a jungle. And then when we separate them at the end of the turn, we push everything into the mountain that's not about to ravage. I think that's kind of a spicy play. All of these are slow powers, so they unfortunately don't actually solve our problems in the wetlands, which is unfortunate, but we are kind of looking towards, I think, the cast down play anyway, so we're just accepting that we're going to hit 2 blight here, 2 blight here. That's probably not going to be the end of the game. And frankly, probably going to blight here. So I do like Weave. It also is going to give us that Sun innate, which is quite nice. So we can use the Sun innate to stop this blight. So let's snap that up, and we're going to forget Traveler's Boon, which is somewhat weaker in True Solo than it is elsewhere. Uh, I do like this option of gathering uh, move one presence and get the air, because we're going to be playing cast down in probably 2 turns, which means in the next, uh, by then we're going to be picking up 3 plus 4 plus 4, 11, at least 11 energy. We're probably just going to be able to play that outright, even if we don't further grow into any of our um, options. So I don't think we need the energy enough to justify not getting the moving presence. So we get level 1 of this, and we also get to isolate. Uh, ooh, an unfortunate thing is that we don't actually have the ability to. Okay, so we need a sacred site in order to play Weave the Fabric of Place. So I think I'm going to move 1 presence from here into there. I like that. And also, Finder can make any 2 lands adjacent, so we actually would be able to do this no matter what. What I'm thinking, though, is that it can be somewhat useful. Uh, okay. I have a slightly different idea. We could weave together this and this instead of this and this. That might be interesting. Okay, let's undo the presence movement. So we're definitely going to push this explorer or this town into here to stop that ravage. On the other hand, how do we want to use this? So if we weave together all of the jungle and all of the other jungle, that will push all of them into there. We could also weave this jungle into that jungle. Um, I'm not actually sure because it has to be adjacent, right? And I don't. So the way that we would do that would be to push 1 presence from here to there, and then we push everything into the mountain at the end of the turn. I kind of like that because we're not going to. This town's already going to be in there. This town will die in the ravage, and that means we're only towns are concentrated here and here. We do have some leftover explorers, so I like that. And in order to do this, we have to move 1 presence here to here. Okay. Uh, so we push the town in. We're going to weave this. Okay. In order to do this, we need to use Finder's 2 lands to make them adjacent. I love the little hummingbird symbols. So we're going to make this and this adjacent. And we can isolate something. I think if we isolate this, we're in a really good place in terms of stopping most builds. Fortunately, this is isolated, so we actually don't have the adjacent issue for this. Okay. Each deals damage, doesn't do anything. Choose a land with... Okay, we don't have those. Skip for rest of phase, so this does nothing. That kills the town. Annoyingly, we do have to add a town, unfortunately, because of the blight. And I believe it has to be to a place that doesn't already have a town or city. Or else we could just add it into the dump land. This is fine, though. Okay. So now we're going to divide this stuff. So we are basically pushing everything into this land. I think it makes sense to keep that there. So we're now in not an unfortunate position, but we are sort of, things are a little bit tighter than we would want them to be because this is going to ravage for 2. And then next turn, all of these are going to ravage. So we would ideally like to be able to use the full left innate in order to push stuff out of here into there. Half plus 1 gets 1, 2, 3. Unfortunately, I don't think that we can actually play that because we would need to draw into a card that can do so. So let's see. I think picking up a minor power is probably correct because a minor power plus Ways of Shore and Heartland is going to most likely let me hit at least some version of the innate, which can hopefully stop this from, for instance, like completely blighting. Okay. Twilight Fog brings Madness is going to let me hit level 2 of the innate, and also two different isolates. So level 2 of the innate kind of pushes the town into there. That's nice, I guess. I'm interested in this. Gift of Constancy, not useful for us, even though it's an incredible card. Roiling Bog and Snagging Thorn, only defends 2, really not worth it for Sweden. Territorial Strife is slow. We're going to pick Twilight Fog brings Madness for the elements. And we are going to grab one extra card play. Okay. And grab these two. And we are now, by the way, in a place where we could probably cast down into the Briny Deeps just on this land, uh, and come pretty darn close to winning next turn. So let's look at what, like next turn, we're going to get push a town or city from one of your lands. You can use that to push whatever town grows out of this. Twilight Fog also does conveniently solve this land. So I think I like this line of play. And we're either going to cast down next turn, unthresholded to just totally kill everything here, or we're going to do it thresholded 2 turns from now. We'll decide which is which later. So finish playing cards. We're going to push this city into here. And unfortunately, we only get one isolate. So there's 2 options as I see it. We isolate the dump land, which is always a good finder best practice because there's a couple events that push things out of the most built up land that would absolutely destroy your game. It's low odds of it happening, but when it happens, it is difficult to come back from. Or the other thing is going to be to isolate this in order to stop further explores outward. The problem is that this is going to build. So this already has a town that could explore into. This will have a town after the build that this could explore into. That means that this isolating this doesn't really do anything, so we're going to isolate the dump land. Okay. Uh, I, ooh, very much hate this. Okay. Lose 1 energy and replace your most expensive non-unique power card in hand or discard pile. So that's going to be cast down. I don't want to lose cast down because I've been kind of building towards it as a major. If we do, we basically have to fish for majors the rest of the game to find something that can handle this. The other option is add an omen token to a land without omens that has the most invaders. So that's going to be this land. So that means that next Ravage, we will get 2 Fear and this will Ravage. The problem is that this is already Ravaging. So basically, if we pick this option, we have to get a major power that lets us skip the Ravage. And I don't feel like the odds of us hitting that are good. Or we just accept that we're going to, blight twice there. So what is that going to mean? So this is already blighting once. So we're going to be at 1 blight. Next turn, this will blight again, potentially doing enough to like do 2. And it will cascade. So the cascade from this is already bad. I don't think that we can do the omens because we can't play. Cast down doesn't go into effect before this. So I think we actually do, very unfortunately, need to let the warning waft. Tsunami is interesting. It is a worse version of cast down, but 8 damage into this, probably not worth it, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but yeah. Blazing Renewal, we don't have any destroyed presence yet, but we're about to have one from this. It does 2 damage to every town or city. If we can threshold it, which I don't think that we can, or actually, we might be able to. Um, we do an extra 4, which means we could kill 4 cities. So that actually is appealing. Um, so let's see if we can threshold this. So we need 2 fire, 2 earth, and a grass. This gets us a fire. We tossed our only grass, but we do have at least 1, 2 earth options. So we would need to grab the any So we have to pick up another major before this can be useful. On the other hand, Blazing Renewal kind of turns Find Our Presence into ammo, right? You lose a presence because you used this, but then great, you get the presence immediately back next turn when you play it. That's kind of appealing. Voice of Command. We don't have any. We don't really have any explorers or Dahan in this land, so it's kind of not super useful. Um, yeah, I don't think that that's going to. Oh, okay, wait. On this land in particular, this is going to have a city, a town, and two explorers. So we might grab Voice of Command if we can threshold it, which we probably can, right? We already have two of the elements, so we just need to play it with any sun card. It hits a threshold, um, and we could do. Uh, oh, it needs to have a Dahan in it already. We're going Blazing Renewal. This is easy. Okay. Uh, Destroy one presence in a land with Blight. The best thing that we can do here is to make sure that we don't have a ton of presence in lands with Blight. So right now we only have one. So we're going to want to move this out. Okay. Twilight Fog brings madness. We're going to use on this. And I guess, so we're going to push one. I think, okay. I mean, whatever. We'll put it into here. Ways of Shore and Heartland, we're going to drop onto this. And we're going to push everything back into here. And we have one destroyed presence. So we unhopefully can't really effectively deal with that. This isn't going to have any elements that can help us. So I think we might be at a place where we are reclaiming. And if we do, uh, we're moving a likely moving. No, so when we reclaim, we're going to want to use Lay Pass that can't help but walk, which has range 0, but on reclaim turns, you get infinite range. So we will then push these out. Yeah, I think this is correct. We're still looking for a major that can solve the game. Instruments of their own rune, very spicy, very fun. And we have aid from Spirit Speakers, which is going to help us threshold that. We can't do it this turn because we only have that one sun, and we need 1, 2, 3, 4 sun. But that plus aid goes a long way. That is the best thing I've seen so far. And I like the idea of tossing, I don't know. Uh, it feels bad to toss a weave as finder, but let's do it. Okay. So first thing we need to move to presence. And I actually, before we do that, we are going to make this land and this land adjacent. And then we're going to move the presence from here, from here to here, because we're about to lose a presence there. And what do we want? So we need 2 moons and an air. So offer passage, not particularly useful. I do like circuitous winding. We can play that on here, even though we don't have any presence there. And now we just need something with a sun and a moon. So that's either Twilight Fog or Offer Passage. Um, I don't really think the Offer Passage is super useful. So let's do Twilight Fog. Okay. So lay paths. Uh, Close the ways. We don't have any blight. Uh, doesn't really matter. Well, the hunt doesn't actually get destroyed, which is kind of nice. The beast damage doesn't matter. 1 fear, sure. Uh, the Dahan not participating here actually is kind of annoying. Okay. Uh, I do think tossing the um, uh, the finder major that lets you make any lands the same land might have been a bad move. We could have pushed all of this out now that it's coming up 3 consecutive times. So let's see. We are going to push half of all invaders from the land, rounding up. Okay. And then this, we can just kind of drop it here so that that doesn't blight this turn, which feels appealing since we do kind of need to full clear this already. I think we are going to be instrumenting this turn uh, in order to actually. Okay, wait, that's true. If we're instrumenting this, it's going to destroy everything here. So we actually do want to push this stuff out. So we're going to push these into here, and then I guess the Dom can go as well. That doesn't matter. Um, and I don't really know where we want to Twilight Fog. Um, I don't know. Here, whatever. Okay, we have a ton of energy. So I think I'm going to go an extra card play instead of the energy and the any, because that's going to enable us to hit this threshold. Uh, so let's continue. I think we do need to fish for another major. Indomitable Claim, quite nice, and very good on Finder specifically. And we're going to toss, I think, Twilight Fog. And we're going to put one presence, I don't know, here. So we're going to go Instruments, Aid from Spirit Speakers, and Indomitable Claim. And for the Indom, I guess we'll grab the any threshold, or maybe push one town or city from one of our lands. I guess we're not at the point where we want to be doing that, but we do have Instruments thresholded. So this is going to be doing 58 damage. So it'll kill everything in here, and I think we're going to push it into there as well by making those adjacent. Okay. And I think we're actually going to Indom into this in order to add a presence back because this has blight. Yeah, I think that's correct. Okay. Aid from Spirit Speakers, push this town into there. Indom. I guess we'll grab the one energy. I don't know what element we need now. If we grab an earth, we can isolate a second land. That seems appealing. Or a first land, frankly. Uh, we'll grab water instead of earth. Water is marginally better for the event one that pops up. This has 20 health. Okay, so we're going to lay paths to push a city out. That didn't work. Lay path to push a city out. Isolate this land. We're going to make this and this adjacent. Okay. We lose a presence. That's fine. Sure. We'll build wherever. It doesn't really matter. Each beast deals 2 damage. That kills that. Add 1 to a mountain or sands. I guess here? Okay. And I actually do want to undo this. We're going to want to make this land and this land adjacent now that there's no longer anything in here. Great. So this will full clear basically everything except for this one land. It doesn't get us too many fear cards, unfortunately, but it does basically, short circuit the game a little bit. All right, we've now really gotten everything lined up. Blazing Renewal seems very appealing. You can cut this off. Uh, let's see. I don't think we need Indom again. I think a common trap is to use it too often. Finder does definitely benefit from having lots of presence out on the board, but I think we do just want to pick up a new power card for getting Indom. I think I might have just lost the game by doing that because we should be Blazing Renewal here. Um, Infinite Vitality, fortunately, totally comes to our savior because we're not going to allow any blight to be added. Irresistible Call, frankly, kind of good here. We cannot afford it, but you do get to gather everything up into an inland land. So you could gather it into, like, here, for instance, something that's not going to come up. But that doesn't really solve that. So we're going to grab Infinite Vitality for getting Indom. And I guess we'll place our presence here. Okay. So we are going to make this and this adjacent. We will push that out because we're going to be using Blazing Renewal here. And that's going to get us 8 fear, 2 fear cards. So we are going to hit 4 Terror level 2 fear cards. We unfortunately don't have. We're actually very close to the threshold now that I think about it. So we would need 1 earth, 1 more earth. So actually, instead of adding presence there from this spot, we're going to grab it from here, which feels bad to do. But then, oh, sorry, that actually still doesn't. Yeah, we still don't hit that threshold. So we're going to undo that. Okay. This and this are adjacent. Push the town out. Blazing Renewal, Infinite Vitality. We're not hitting any innate, which doesn't feel good, but we can't really afford it. We need this to make sure that nothing dies, and then Blazing Renewal to push all of that, to clear up as much of that as we can. I think we're going to grab a water so that we can at least isolate it. Isolate, Infinite Vitality, Blazing Renewal here. We do lose a presence, and we have 0 energy, so we do lose a second presence, which is fine because that is just ammo for future turns of Blazing Renewal. Okay. On each board, remove. I do like the first option of adding a disease. I don't. Yeah, there's nothing that we. I don't think we can actually pay for the second one. So let's allow destruction. So we'll add the disease here. It is fast, so we do gain a blight, and that kills off all the cities. GG. Okay. That was Finder. I think that was an interesting game because it showed off how many majors are useful for Finder. So you normally think the restriction that you can't do damage to things without paying responsibilities is a pretty significant drawback to going the major power game. But there's actually quite a few majors that are just great on Finder that don't do any damage. About a third of the deck doesn't do any damage at all. And then there's ones that do damage, but it ultimately doesn't matter, like Blazing Renewal. I don't know. You have a lot more options. I think every Finder game is fun because there's so many major powers that are good. So every game feels very different, even though you do have a similar plan in true solo. Let me know if you enjoyed this, if I did anything horribly wrong, or if you would have done things differently. Thanks for watching.